Ancient and Shining Ones, Chapter 7, Ceremonial Magic. Ceremonial magic is one of the few systems in this book that can be practiced without a belief in any religious system, beyond the acknowledgement of a supreme creator and what are called angels and demons, which are really human names for types of powers. Although this system is a very old one, dating from ancient Mesopotamian and Egyptian times, it was widely used during the medieval era. And is still practiced today. Because the magicians practicing this type of magic could profess a basic belief in a supreme creator, such as that of the ruling Christian church, they often felt comfortable participating in the accepted religion of the day. This participation kept most of them free from persecution. The majority of these magicians also were very secretive about their magical work, which helped them live fairly safe lives. Furthermore, many of the clergy delved into ceremonial magic, until even this was declared anathema by the powerful Christian church. Although ceremonial magic believes in the existence of a supreme creator, the practicing magician does not grovel before the deity, cower before the so-called demons, or engage in long prayer sessions. He fully understands that what is called gods and angels and demons are really only living symbols of matrices of power. His rituals are merely a pattern-making system for contacting and using these powers. The archetypal images used in magic are shared by everyone. They are all embedded in what Jung calls the collective unconscious. These images are found in similar forms worldwide in myths, legends, and folklore. Ceremonial magic is often said to be divided into high magic and low magic. High magic is very demanding, detailed, and uses many languages, including ancient Greek, Hebrew, Latin, and what John Dee called the angelic language. Low magic is in the common tongue of the country in which it is practiced. High magic deals directly with God, angels, and demons. Low magic deals with pantheons of deities and nature spirits. High magic was generally studied from teachers and written sources. Low magic was passed orally from one person to another in small villages. The goody wives, wise men and women, and illiterate psychics used low magic for healing, spell work, and generally helping their fellow neighbors. In very simplistic terms, high magic was the magic of scholars, low magic of the peasantry. These terms no longer apply. High magic is no longer considered the Cadillac of ceremonial magic. Regardless of the differences between the two, both magics use ceremony and technically are ceremonial magic. However, this chapter would deal primarily with high magic, which is what is generally meant when one speaks of ceremonial magic. Low magic is not to be despised as an inferior type of magic. It definitely has its place in the scheme of magical training. It is an excellent proving ground for the novice magician, allowing him to sharpen his skills before moving on to the extremely demanding and often dangerous task of dealing with the evocation used in high magic. It can also be an end unto itself, if the magician feels more comfortable working directly with archetypes and energies. The invocation used in low magic is not to be sneered at. It takes great preparation and self-knowledge to call a god form down into the circle without repercussions. High magic tends to think of the supreme creator as a combined male-female god. This type of magic calls upon angels, the rulers of the elements, demons, and other forces which can be unpredictable. In order to do this safely, the ceremonial magician works within a caste consecrated circle, but also sets up a consecrated triangle outside of the circle. This triangle is for the occupation of the powers he is calling upon, the angelic or demonic forces, the rulers of the elements, nature spirits. He does not call upon the supreme creator to manifest itself, only the powers ranking below God. Practitioners of either high or low magic do not sell their souls to the devil, although the fundamentalist Christians would like everyone to believe they do. The bad press comes from the mentally unbalanced individuals who dabble in whatever type of magic. They would exhibit the same sick, bizarre traits and mental imagings, and do if they participated in born-again Christian services. The media encourages an immortal image of magic because it sells books and papers. The Christians because it keeps people from being curious and asking probing questions. Isaac Bonwitz writes that the only difference between magic and science is that the knowledge used by magic has not yet been confirmed and accepted by the scientific community. Many of the things we now take for granted, such as astronomy, chemistry, medicine, physics, reading, mathematics, and writing, were originally occult secrets. It may be centuries before other psychic and magical arts are accepted by the general populace and the powerful scientific community. This is because the curious magician who delves into other worlds for his knowledge and enlightenment works according to his own rules and comes up with answers without physical proof beyond the desired results. That is, people accept the existence of atoms without ever seeing one, just because science says they are there. A magician knows he cannot prove the existence of angels or elementals and does not have the political clout to make anyone else believe him. But he really does not care if anyone else believes in his work. He gets the desired results, and that is all that matters. The ceremonial magician, like all magicians, is an artist, one who goes deep within his subconscious mind in order to reach the doorway to other dimensions of existence. His practice of self-discipline, self-knowledge, and self-control enable him to pass unharmed into other worlds. His training helps him to find and see universal symbols and understand their meaning and application to his everyday life. Because he has few preconceived ideas about what he will find, the magician is open to discoveries that can revolutionize thinking, science, and humankind's relationship with the universe. The most effective magicians probably could be said to practice gray magic. White and black magic definitely limit the exploration of truth and knowledge. White magic could be said to be simply poetry and prayer to the Supreme Creator. Black magic, of course, is dealing wholly with demons and immoral acts to gain results, usually personal power over others. Gray magic uses everything white magic does: healing, beneficial outcomes, expansion of consciousness, plus it adds the elimination of evils, stopping criminals, rapists, and murderers, has as high a priority as removing disease in the physical body. The ceremonial magician must walk a tightrope, controlling negative entities, but not falling under their influence, and avoiding any immorality that will cause him karmic repercussions. It is my opinion that blood sacrifice falls into the category of immoral actions, bearing with it karmic consequence better done without. Aleister Crowley, who did indulge in many questionable activities, states that the incense of Abramelin or Dittany of Crete are acceptable replacements for blood sacrifice. They are both also excellent for materializations. The ceremonial magician uses ritual tools similar to those used by most fellow followers of witchcraft: the sword, dagger, wand, chalice, incense burner, candles. He uses special incense blends for specific purposes, following ancient correspondence tables for choosing the ingredients. He wears ceremonial robes used only for ritual, and he may work solitary or with a small number of like-minded individuals. It is not necessary to belong to a group in order to perform ceremonial magic. Beware of groups or individuals who claim that they are the practitioners of an ancient method. They will often offer to teach selected students for a fee, of course. If you become acquainted with anyone with a guru or master teacher complex, retreat as fast as you can. The magician casts his protection circle with the sword at the beginning of each ritual, then sprinkles the imaginary outline with salt and water, and fumigates it with smoking incense. At the 4 directional quarters, he calls upon the archangels of the elements to stand guard for and help him. After this initial part of the ritual, the magician then continues on to whatever spell work he has planted. To close, he dismisses the archangels and cuts the circle. The novice magician generally begins with the idea that he is practicing magic in order to contact the Supreme Creator and higher spirits. No matter where his studies lead him, he will eventually return to this premise. The dedicated true magician seeks knowledge and wisdom in order to better himself and the world. He cannot do this by consorting only with lower spirits and powers. Whether he starts out to or not, his magical work will precipitate a change in the consciousness of groups and nations. The ceremonial magician works with the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life glyph. He also uses a technique known as assuming the God form in order to bring certain forces within himself into better balance. This technique is also used in witchcraft, but not for quite the same purposes. In both magical systems, it is called invocation. Evocation is the calling into the magic triangle of powers or entities that one does not wish to directly associate with. These types of powers are too destructive and dangerous to the magician to make direct physical contact. The grimoires of the 14th to the 19th centuries speak of evocation as a major part of magic. However, the writings of Paracelsus, Cornelius Agrippa, John Dee, and Francis Barrett put evocation into a better perspective in relation to the rest of traditional magic. Evocation is not as beneficial to the magician as invocation. The ancient grimoires, or books of magical knowledge, carefully detail the extensive preparations for evocation, some of which border on the absurd. Grimoires which deal primarily with evocation are the Goetia or Lesser Keys of Solomon, the Grimorium Verum, the Greater Key of Solomon, and many others. To assume a god form, the magician studies the archetypal god or goddess in which he is interested. In preparation for the ritual, he assembles certain items known to magically correspond to that particular energy, such as stones, colors, plants, incense, statues, etc. By meditation and mental discipline, he calls upon the archetypes in ritual. He feels the type of power that he wants to enter within him. He will intone the God name, imagine himself in the God's form. At the end of his ritual, he dismisses the power so that he can operate normally in his physical body. Each archetypal energy form or deity has both a positive and negative side. Negative does not automatically mean evil or bad. An example would be Mars or Aries. The negative energy of Mars would exhibit itself in anger. This energy has its place at the proper time and in certain circumstances. But if there is a predominance of this energy within a magician's life, he will need to balance it in order to have greater harmony. He will not attempt to balance this by calling upon Jupiter, but rather by calling upon the positive powers of Mars, courage, strength, steadfastness. Thus empowered, he could also send energy to an imbalanced situation in the neighborhood, region, or nation in order to correct it. Each magician must pass through an initiation. It is not necessary to gain initiation by going through a ritual and being sprinkled or whatever by someone else. The outer trappings do not guarantee that a magician is initiated. That process can only take place within the heart and mind of the individual. It can occur spontaneously, as happens with many shamans, or it may occur during a profoundly enacted ritual. High magic speaks of having to pass the dweller on the threshold. This mystical guardian to the door to other worlds lies deep within each individual. The dweller is the guardian of a magical sanity. Without the correct mental and spiritual preparation, the magician can run into serious trouble if he manages to force his way into unknown realms, such as with the use of drugs. Joseph Campbell speaks of three stages that initiates undergo. He calls them separation, initiation, and return. Separation is when the novice magician releases his preconceived ideas about reality. Something snaps, and he is faced with admitting that he knows little, if anything, about true reality, particularly of the mind and other worlds. This leads him to deeper levels of his subconscious mind, where he encounters the dweller. It can be a frightening experience, particularly if one has no preparation. The dweller appears to be all the things that make up the personality, good and bad. Seeing oneself as one really is takes a tremendous amount of courage, but this must be accomplished and acknowledged if the magician is to pass safely through the door to other worlds. The return is simply that, a return to ordinary existence. However, the magician will not be the same. He cannot be because of the deep spiritual experience which he has endured. When the magician comes to terms with the existence and reality of the dweller on the threshold, he must convert this entity into a doorkeeper. This turns the dweller into a protector, whose function then becomes one of keeping the magician in line, so to speak, and refusing him entry to the other worlds if there is danger to him. The dweller also keeps out of the magician's mind and body any entities or power that would harm him. The ancient Egyptians understood the dangers of wandering about in other worlds, uninitiated and without the proper preparation. Therefore, they used archetypal gods such as Thoth and Anubis, who was called the opener of the way. Western magicians may feel more comfortable calling upon Merlin or the guardian angel. By calling upon such powers before journeying into other worlds, the magician has access to great wisdom and counsel. Most practitioners of high magic try to have a room set aside especially for their ritual work. The sphere of power built up within such a room becomes palpable to even a non-believer. By having a separate room such as this, the magician can leave out his altar and ritual paraphernalia. However, to many people this is not possible. They build their temple in their minds, as they wish it were, each time they set up their altar for a ritual. This is a great deal harder than having a consecrated room, but it is possible to practice magic in this manner. It is not necessary or desirable that the ritual room take on the appearance of a museum stuffed with useless but impressive-looking objects. Rather than wait until you can have all the ritual tools you want for high magic, begin with what you have. A kitchen knife can replace sword and dagger, a glass the chalice, a tree branch the wand, and so on. Of course, there will come a time when you can replace each of your substitute tools, but even then, one does not have to spend hundreds of dollars for equipment. The tools a magician makes for himself, imbuing them with his personal power, just by making them, are the best in any circumstances. There comes a time in every ceremonial magician's life when he feels that he can advance no further, that everything he has done to that point has been wasted effort. High magic often refers to this as the lesser abyss. In order to pass by this obstacle, the magician must do some soul searching. A change of consciousness is required if he is to advance further. High magic uses the magician's native language, but interposed with ancient Greek, Latin, Hebrew, Enochian, and unknown languages. The use of such unfamiliar languages helps the magician's mind to switch to ritual purposes. The names of power are usually in another language. This is a human attempt to expand consciousness, to delve into other dimensions of existence. In order to advance spiritually, the magician must be able to form relationships through ritual and magic with non-human entities. After all, the ceremonial magician knows that this physical world is not the only sphere of existence and power. The ceremonial magician is not chained to performing ancient rituals word for word, or even anything like they were performed in centuries past. The magician must learn what works best for him and prepare and perhaps write his own, taking into account, of course, that certain elements must be included. The circle casting and consecration, the calling of the elements, the dismissal of such upon completion of the ritual. All these must be incorporated into each performance. It is good to remember that many of the techniques used in magic act as filters, allowing a smooth and safe flow of energy between the magician and the power calling upon which he is calling. But as the magician is the only one who can consecrate his ritual tools, so is he the best to know what works for forming his mental and spiritual link with the invoked deities or powers. Chanting, music, and dance all help direct the mind and locate the energies or entities needed for the ritual. However, there are no secret ancient words of power that will create magic all by themselves. The calls used in high magic connect with the rest of the ritual to produce the desired effect. Ceremonial magic can and should be a method by which the practicing magician raises his own levels of spirituality. By precipitating his own growth, he thereby improves the condition of those around him and of the world in general.